Hello, everyone. We are working on another N4 lesson today, and we are jumping into two additional ways we can talk about uh, causal relationships. That's the cause and effect. Because something happened, something else happened. Because of this reason, I'm going to do this or ask you to do that. Prior to this lesson, we talked about kara. We've talked about kara, and you'll notice that the formation of these sentences is very similar to kara in the sense of ordering and whatnot. But you'll see we're going to talk about a few differences between them as we learn about these two new ones. We're going to be talking about node, and then the second one, which kind of looks strange by itself, it is using the te form, to show a cause and effect relationship. So let's go ahead and jump into them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, whenever you want. Let's go. So we did talk about tame earlier as well, which is kind of, I don't usually group it in with the cause and effect ones. Most people, when they think, how do you talk about cause and effect? They say kara, they say node, and then they say te form. But let's focus on these. The first one is node. Now, it's almost 100% the same as the structuring of kara. So if you remember kara from before, you're going to say, hey, this looks really familiar. And that's because it is. It's mostly a couple of changes in when you can use it, but the structure is very, very similar. So let's take a look at it. With our verbs, we're going to use the casual form as we have in the past. Same with e-adjectives, it's the short form. With our nouns and with our na-adjectives, the ones at the bottom, these are slightly different. We're going to use the na here. So if you're saying because something is famous, you'd say yume nanode. With Japan, because it's Japan, nihon nanode. This is one of the small changes between this one and kara. Because I'm going to type these out real fast. If we were using kara for these same ones, we'd say iku kara. We might say samui kara. However, with yume, we would not say yume nakara. It sounds strange. We say dakara. Yume dakara. Or we might say nihon dakara. So with node, we're using the na when we need to. With kara, we're using da. Now, there are a ton of different ways that you can use these. Now, I'm going to mention this real fast. Here, we're doing the noun doesn't have tense, of course. But with the other ones, let me jump back real fast. With samui, with yume, and with nihon, I guess in a sense it has tense. And iku, these are all present tense or non-past. You can use past tense as well. You can also use negative as well. So we're not going to have examples for absolutely everything, but you might have samui node, like we have here. You might have samukatta node. You might have samukunai node. These are all okay. There's basically no restrictions on the tense that you use here. Now with you may, let's say you want to say because it's not famous. You might say something like this, yume janai node. If you want to say because it was famous, something that was famous before, but isn't now, yume datta node. So there's no restrictions here for when you can use it, positive, negative, past, non-past. The only small difference, and it's going to mention this in the lesson a bit later on, is with the present na adjectives and the present nouns. Like it shows on the screen, you're going to use na, not da. Just hold on to that one little nugget. Let's look at some examples. And hopefully some of this will get, a bit clearer in your head. 日本に行くので日本語を勉強する. Because I'm going to Japan, I will study. Because I'm going to Japan, I will study Japanese. Na, a name is still a noun. So yes. So you could say something like, let me, if I can type out my own name. And maybe, I hope someone thinks it's about me. Maybe they might say, oh, what about that class? And I say, well, it's Michael, so it's interesting. Michael なので面白いよ. So that's my goal, is for someone to feel that way in reference to these classes. But yes, a name is still a noun, and so you'd have that na in there. Okay, back to the examples that are in front of us. We're going to go through about 4 of them. So with this first one, I'm studying Japanese because I'm going to Japan. Or, because I'm going to Japan, I'm studying Japanese. Now, the node is always going to come at the top of the sentence at the beginning. If you remember with kara, there were some sentences where we put kara at the end, or we wanted to flip them to have kind of a different nuance. Node, however, you can't do that. Node is always coming at the beginning. 外は寒いので誰もいません. It's cold outside, so there is no one, or no one is around, no one is here. Again, we have the cause or the reason at the beginning, and then we have the effect or the result coming afterward. あのレストランは有名なのでいつも混んでいる. Komu might not be a word that you know yet, but just in case you don't, komu means to be crowded. So that restaurant is famous, or because that restaurant's famous, it's always crowded. Or, because it's Japan, we use yen, as in, the currency. 日本なので円を使おう. So these are very simple examples. And like I said before, although English, you can go back and forth, with the Japanese, that node is always coming first. The node is always coming first. Now, hopefully, this has made sense to you so far. You're probably thinking this looks really similar to kara, as I said before, and it is. So when do you use each one? There are a few differences. One of the differences is one that we talked about, is the structure difference. When we use da with kara, we use na with node. And in fact, these are such strong links that often you will see people refer to dakara. Like they think of it as they think there's kara and then there's also dakara. They kind of mean the same thing. But you've heard dakara, and you even hear people say dakara in a sentence. It's like because of something that was said earlier. So hold on to that dakara. Similarly, you will often see nanode written as a single chunk. In fact, let's see this one with Renshu. You can see here with yume na, the na is getting attached to yume and the node is separate. But down here, it's actually here, nanode, as a single word. So it's dakara or it's nanode. Now, here are the usage differences. Node is more formal than kara. It's not overly formal. It's not a, well, if I'm not in business, I'm not going to need it, but it is more formal or more polite. Because of that, you will hear it more often in, say, polite situations, business situations. You will also hear kara as well. Additionally, you'll see node much more often in writing because writing tends to be a bit more formal. And I can give you a couple of examples. When we walk to school, this is not about the crow, but when we walk to school, there's a power station nearby. And of course, they don't want kids going into the power station. So, it'll say something like this. Oh, I guess I can use kanji. Let me try typing that out. It has this on a sign, a big sign. Abunai node hairanai de kudasai. It's dangerous, so please don't enter. Now, you're free to use this in casual situations as well, but you tend to hear kara a bit more often when you get more on the casual end of things. So that's usage or difference number one. That one I think is fairly easy to think about. The second one, this one is big, and we're going to spend the most time thinking about it. Okay. With node, there's one additional restriction. I'm saying something that's not written on the screen, but I'm saying it so you see different ways to think about this. When you have node and kara, they're both formed this way. This is exactly the same. However, with node, you cannot use it to express personal opinions, invitations, or desires. So what exactly is going on here? What exactly does that mean? The reason for this is because of this following page. Everything that comes before node needs to be, I'm going to type this out because it's that important, it needs to be objective information. And if you don't know what objective information is, it is facts or information that are generally accepted as true. As in, it's not an opinion. It's not a feeling that you have. Those are referred to as subjective. You have objective and subjective. So if you were to say the class starts at 9 o'clock, that's objective. That's information. There's no debating that. Subjective, so because the class starts at 9 o'clock, you need to wake up early. That's pretty objective. The reason is, at least. Subjective is something that you think that other people may not think. It's your feelings. It's saying, I love that movie, whereas someone else says, oh, I didn't think it was that good. Or you might say, well, I think learning node is really difficult. And someone else says, oh, no, node was easy. These are all subjective things. Node can only be objective. I'm going to type that out. Node needs something objective in front of it. And on top of that, it cannot show your feelings on either side as well. So look at the sentence that's in front of us. 日本に行くので日本語を勉強したい. Because I'm going to Japan, I want to study Japanese. This is a personal statement. It involves you. It involves your feeling. And when I say feeling, I mean it involves your volition. Your desire to do something is a feeling. Because of that, you're not going to use node here. Instead, you would use kara. 日本に行くから日本語を勉強したい. Let me give you another example. Look at these two. And in fact, I now see that the color on these two are backwards. I apologize for that, but the little kaochan holding up the signs are correct. And I'll fix this afterwards. 寒いのでコート着てください. This is okay. This is okay because the reason being given is an objective reason, because it's cold. I mean, some people might disagree on what cold is, where someone might say, oh, it's cold, and someone else says, oh, it's not that cold. But generally speaking, a temperature is not something you argue about. And so you'd say, 寒いのでコートを着てください. Because you're using objective information, node is okay. However, the second sentence does not work. その映画は面白いので見てください. This one involves your personal feelings. You're saying, because it's interesting. Interesting is not a fact. It's a feeling. It's an opinion. Because it's interesting, please watch it. This does not work, despite the green on here. This does not work. So you cannot use node. Kara is great because kara does not have that restriction. Kara, you could replace both of these sentences with kara and it would be okay. 寒いからコート着てください. Okay. その映画は面白いから見てください. Also okay. We could jump back to these two. Well, this sentence has kara in it. So in general, this is how I describe them. More casual, less restrictive. Node is more polite, objective info only. Now, kara is not so casual that if you use it in a polite situation, people are going to say, oh, they're being very overly familiar. It's not that level of casualness. I would almost go so far as to say kara is kind of your standard politeness, and node is kind of a step above that, slightly more formal. So don't feel uncomfortable using kara. But as you start to pay attention with node, you're going to see that it is used in more formal situations. Now, it's worth pointing out that if you look at information on node on the internet, you will often see this noted. You'll say, node cannot be used for requests or demands. And this is wrong. This is wrong, and even Renshu had a bit of this information up until recently. What it should say is it cannot be used for requests or demands. Demand is not the right word. Let's say commands. Requests or commands. Unless it's because of objective information. So I gave you one example. 寒いのでコート着てください. And that's okay. And that's a command. It's please put on a coat. Just like before, I had 危ないので入らないでください. 入らないでください. Whoops, that's not how you write it. Getting even more formal. Say you are waiting, say you're waiting for a movie or for a concert or something, and they're not ready. Maybe the previous show just finished and they're cleaning up. You might hear something like this. Now, this uses slightly more difficult Japanese that you might not know yet. The second half of this sentence is using a formal and honorific form of the verb, but you can probably guess what it means. 時間になりましたのでお入りください. The time has come, or it's time, so please enter. Now, this is as formal as you can get. You know, this is a highly formal level command, and yet they're still using node. So, node, this whole node cannot be used for requests or commands. This is only true when the request or command or invitation, well, don't use it with invitations. The request or command is based on subjective information. So because it's interesting, go see that movie. Or because it's scary, I don't think you should do that. Things like that you will not use with node. Now, usually I don't say, hey, any questions? But this is a big topic and we just talked about a whole bunch of stuff. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. While you're thinking about, hey, maybe I have a question or not, I'd like to practice this a little bit before we jump into the next section. So let's think about some kind of cause and effect. And let's stick, since we're focusing on this thing that is slightly misrepresented in other places, let's use those as an example. And let's pretend that you are, and maybe you are, but if you aren't, let's pretend that you're a mother or a father, a parent or a teacher, someone that's in charge of other people. And you need to tell them to do something. And of course, it always helps to tell them why you need them to do something. And so let's think about, if you want to just focus, think about, what a parent might say or what a parent has told you recently, because, you know, because you have a test, because it's late. And think of some command to come after that. Now, I'd say let's switch, actually, now I'm thinking about, let's switch off of parent and let's go with teacher, because a teacher is more likely to use slightly more formal language. So let's think about things that a teacher might ask you to do using node. I'll give you a quick example. So maybe you're in a class where the teacher gives out homework only on the weekends, like special weekend homework, and you're expected to turn it in on a Monday. And everyone knows this. So the teacher might say, 月曜日なので宿題を出してください. It's Monday, with the understanding that, oh, it's Monday, so you turn it in. It's Monday, so please turn in your homework. Or hand in your homework. Turn it, hand it. What are other things a teacher might ask you to do? And why might they ask you to do it? Now, this is slightly more difficult, so if you don't feel comfortable trying something out, that's fine. Just see what other people try. And, or, at the least, try writing a sentence just in front of you. Type it on in the notepad or on a piece of paper. You don't have to share it with us. But even just trying to put out some words somewhere can help you get a better feel for this. Oh, that's a good one. 寒いので窓を閉めてください. It would also work if it was hot. Maybe it was too hot outside, so also close the windows. I like the second one. 図書館なので静かにしてください. Now, urusai would not quite work. Also, it would be weird to hear urusai with more formal language. But urusai is still subjective. What is noisy? Noisy is something, some people would think a certain situation is noisy. Other people might say it's lively. And then people usually say lively in a positive sense. So that one's more of a subjective feeling, so that wouldn't quite fit. Oh, I like this other one. This one's not really a teacher, but maybe work at a business. The customer or the guest has come, so please clean the floor. Although This is very small, but I feel like you'd probably hear this. Instead of yuka o soji shite, you probably would hear soji doesn't usually take a direct object. Like it's just to clean. And so you might hear yuka no soji. So it sounds weird when translating. It's like the floor cleaning, but I feel like that might be a smidge closer. But content wise, it's perfect. It's great. Again, someone jump back to the teacher stance. There's a test next week, an exam next week, so please study. Of course. Yeah, teachers will say that, 100 times and kids still won't study. But it's a very common thing, a common thing to hear. But these are good, these are very good examples. I'll give you about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to jump into the back half of our lesson. Or not back half, back third maybe. That last one that someone put up, this one's not a command, but they're referring to their own actions. And there's a class. And again, there's a class is not subjective. You might say the class is hard, so I woke up early, and that wouldn't work. But this one, they're just saying there's a class, so I woke up early. And that's great. It's a statement of fact that there is a class. Okay, let's keep going. We have one more thing to talk about today. And it's the te form again. What can't the te form do? This one, I have had people complain about this one. They're not wrong to do so, because this one feels the most nebulous in terms of identifying cause or reason. Because the te form can mean so many different things. It's one of those why use one of those other words? Why do they use the te form? But it does happen, so we need to know about it. With the te form, we usually think about the te form in separate sections. We talk about the verb te form. We talk about the te form used to connect adjectives together. But here, we're going to lump it all into one big group. Nouns get de. You don't say nihon te. You say nihon de. Non-adjectives get the de. E-adjectives get that kite, like kawaikite, oishikute. And for reasons unknown, these can be used to mark reasons and causes for something. So let's take a look at some examples. These are some shorter examples, and then we'll jump into some actual longer ones. Oame de, because of the heavy rain. Benri de, because it's convenient. Isogashikute, because I'm busy. Now, with this, it's not always the case, just like everything, but more often than not, these are used to show negative reasons for something. Not negative as in the nai reason, but negative as in a good, bad sense. Oame de shiai ni ikenakatta. Like before, going along with our node, this is all happening at the beginning of the sentence. Oame de shiai ni ikenakatta. O is one of those weird, I guess you could call it a prefix, but it's not one where you can just say, oh, it means big or large. I'm just going to slap it onto anything. Sometimes it's O, sometimes it's dai. Sometimes you just can't put it in front of certain words. So often you'll see these as single units. O ame, heavy rain. O ame de shiai ni ikenakatta. I couldn't go to the game or the match because of the heavy rain, due to the heavy rain. And like before, we've already talked about this. You have to have it at the beginning, despite the English going either way. You could say, I couldn't go to the game because it was raining, the heavy rain, or because of the heavy rain, I couldn't go to the game. With Japanese, almost always, 99% of the time, the cause comes first. This one is a positive one. 携帯が便利でよく使っている. The word keitai is not used quite as often these days. It's still used a lot, but you hear smaho, smartphone, because the idea of a flip phone, a clamshell phone, is they're getting less and less common, and so you hear smartphone being used more often. But keitai is still a broader term that covers both mobile phones and smartphones. But because my phone is convenient, I use it often. And this might be something you are lamenting about. Someone says, hey, let's play. And you say, well, I'm sorry. 今月は忙しくて遊ぶ時間がない. I'm busy this month, so I can't play, or I have no time to play. So you can see two of these are negative sentences. There's a negative sentiment involved in them. While it can be used for positive, you'll generally see them for negative ones. That's why it's more common than not that with the te form, you're going to see it translated as due to. Because due to in English is more often than not used to describe a negative reason for something happening. So let's think about it a little bit. Let's practice this a little bit, and then we're going to wrap this up. It's a bit of a shorter lesson. But let's think of first, let's generate some examples, and then we'll try and take those examples and make sentences out of them. So here we have oame, heavy rain. What are some other nouns you can think of that would cause something bad to happen? Some event or some situation that would make you say, because of this, something bad occurred. I'll give you one more. Kaze. Oh, jishin, sure. Oh, and please go ahead and, just in case we're putting up words that people don't know, put the English next to it. Especially because people are using kanji when they can. And I'm going to step away for just a minute, but I hope to see a large list of bad things when I get back. Okay, so I see a lot of natural disasters coming up, fire, earthquake, typhoon. It could also be weather. We had oame. You could use yuki, just snow. Now, if we were doing just nouns before, but if we're doing verbs, remember we'll need the te form of the verb. So with the mizu, it would be mizu ga, and it wouldn't be inakunatte, it'd be nakunatte. And we have that te form on the end. Kotsujiko de. Hopefully none of you will need to use that in a sentence, but yeah, looking good. So for practice, and then we're going to wrap things up. Let's take any of the ones that people put up, or come up with your own. But feel free to steal what we have in there, and let's think of some negative result that came from one of these things. So, for example, I might say something like this: because of the snow, the train stopped. Yuki de densha ga tomatta. Due to the snow, because of the snow, the train stopped. Evacuate, that's a good word. Now, while people are trying to put these together into sentences, the reason that you put up does not need to be a negative concept in and of itself, and it can still have a negative result. For example, "Sono mise wa ninki de zenzen hairenai." So that store, or it's kind of interesting with Japanese, you often use mise when you're referring to a restaurant. "Sono mise wa ninki de zenzen hairenai." That store or restaurant is so popular I can't get in. Some of you are wondering why people keep talking about crows and you weren't here for the pre-lesson discussion. There's a park nearby where I live. I walk through this park every day. And starting yesterday, I say starting because it's now happened twice, there's a crow that gets very close to attacking me when I walk through the park. It's just tried to scare me away each time. So I'm not sure where the line is between being scared and being attacked. I really don't want to find out where that line is. And again, we are wrapping things up in just a couple of minutes. So if you have any other questions, get them out now. You can ask about the te form that we're using now, or you can jump back to the node we were talking about before. Kota ga dekiru doesn't really fit in there. If you are often in that state, I don't think we've talked about this form, but since you asked, you're talking about because of the snow, you are no longer able to do something, as in it's a change from being able to do it to not being able to do it. And when you have that change, this is what happens. You use the nakunaru form. And since we're talking about potential, we'd say ikenaku, ikenakunatta. Kind of a tongue twister. Because ikenai by itself is, you can't, I can't go, as in I can't go to work. But you can change it to ku in the same way that you would say, atsukunatta, it got hot. It's the same change happening, except it's changing into you not being able to go. So because of due to the snow, I could no longer go to work. I believe I can check on this for you. Yes, if you look up in Renshu and you search for nakunaru in the grammar dictionary, it will come up. And it is N4, so we will get to it. We just haven't yet. But I didn't read them, but a couple of other sentences popped up. One person talked about not being able to go to Akihabara because of a cold. Someone else said the water disappeared, so they couldn't get a bath. Maybe there was water, but someone else didn't realize that that person hadn't taken a bath and they let the water out and they said, oh, the water's gone. 暑いのでみんながなっています。暑くてみんながなっています。There's not a huge difference. The first one is a bit more formal, and it's the second one has a higher chance of it sounding negative. The first one doesn't have any inherent positive or negative feel to it. The second one might be, it might sound like it's hot, so everyone say gave up working. They're like, I'm not gonna work. It's too hot. I'm going to sleep. So everyone is sleeping because it's too hot, but kind of like in hidden parentheses, but they'd rather be doing something else. But with Japanese being what it is, looking at a single sentence out of a dialogue, but you only see a single sentence, it's very hard sometimes to apply a context to it and say it definitively means this. So with that second sentence, it might be more so that the previous sentence said something like, oh, they have so much work, but it's too hot, so they're sleeping. Anyway, thank you everyone so much for joining today's lesson. This is always here inside of Renshu, inside of resources and then Japanese lessons, so you can check this out. And the video that has both Renshu and me talking and the Discord will be available here in the Discord later on, as well as inside of Renshu if you need to get to it. But I hope this helped you get closer to understanding these concepts, and I hope you join us next time. So thank you so much for coming.